A child crouches at the edge of a rainforest stream on the island of New Britain, knees pressed into damp moss, fingers brushing the surface where sunlight fractures through the canopy above. The water is clear and still, reflecting not just the sky but something older, the shadowed silhouette of a handprint pressed into wet clay by someone long vanished. Around him the forest hums with unseen life. Birdsong, insects, the distant drumming of woodpeckers. But this moment, this quiet child touching water that has flowed over stone since before memory began, is not just about place or time, it is a threshold. The DNA in his blood carries whispers from a past so deep it cannot be traced to any fossil we have unearthed, yet whose echoes pulse through him with every breath. This island chain, part of Melanesia's arc, stretching eastward across the Pacific, is home to people whose ancestors moved into this region not just once but possibly multiple times over tens of thousands of years. And in their bloodlines, something unexpected persists, a genetic signature unlike any known human species. Not Neanderthal, not Homo sapiens, something older, stranger. Scientists call it a ghost lineage. It cannot be seen in bones because no such bones have yet been found. But the genes are real, detectable only through the intricate code of DNA passed down across generations. In the quiet way that time settles into soil and stone, this ancestry has been quietly shaping human history, not by standing as a separate species, but by blending with Homo sapiens who arrived here millennia ago. The child's body carries traces of an ancient interbreeding event we can only infer from molecules in his cells. It is not myth or speculation, it is written in the very structure of his genes. The forest breathes around him. He does not know what he carries, nor why it matters, but somewhere deep within his DNA, a line stretches back beyond known history, into the shadows where another branch of humanity once walked, and left behind only silence and code. In the highland valleys of Melanesia, where mist curls through ancient rainforests and volcanic peaks pierce the clouds, a quiet revolution in human origins is unfolding, not in bone, but in the hidden code of living bloodlines. Around 50,000 years ago, as modern humans, Homo sapiens began their great dispersal out of Africa. They did not travel alone. Across Southeast Asia and into the islands that now form Papua New Guinea, the Solomon Islands, and Vanuatu, a complex web of human populations was already in motion. The climate was cooler, sea levels lower, land bridges connected many islands that are now distant across open ocean. In this era of shifting continents and deep forests, multiple ancient hominin lineages coexisted, some known from fossil fragments, others glimpsed only through the faintest traces in DNA. While Homo sapiens pressed eastward towards Sahul, the vast Pleistocene continent uniting Australia, New Guinea, and Tasmania, other branches of our ancestral tree lingered. The Denisovans, first identified from a single finger bone found in a Siberian cave, had already spread across Asia, leaving genetic echoes far beyond their known range. But the story extends further than that. In Melanesian genomes today, scientists detect not just Denisovan DNA, but also additional archaic signatures, lineages so ancient and divergent they have no clear fossil correlate. These are not mere fragments, they represent entire branches of humanity, now extinct, whose genetic footprints were preserved when their descendants interbred with incoming Homo sapiens. This was a time of migration, isolation, and quiet encounter, where small populations lived in deep valleys or on isolated islands, each shaped by distinct evolutionary pressures. The environment was both challenging and rich. Dense forests, unpredictable weather, rugged terrain that could shelter entire lineages from the world beyond. And beneath the surface of this remote human story lies a truth now emerging through genetic sequencing. Our species did not evolve in isolation, nor did we travel alone. The people of Melanesia carry within them echoes of ancestors long vanished, ghosts who walked these lands before us, whose blood still flows through living veins. What we know comes not from bones alone, but from a quiet whisper written in the code of living people. DNA extracted from blood samples drawn across Melanesian islands, from villages on New Guinea to remote highland communities. These sequences are the first tangible traces of a lineage long vanished, preserved only as fragments buried within the genome of modern humans who have lived here for millennia. Scientists sequenced thousands of human genomes, comparing patterns across populations, searching for genetic signatures that do not match known lineages, Homo sapiens, Neanderthal, or Denisovan. When they found regions where Melanesians carried DNA unlike any seen in African or Eurasian populations, a new branch began to emerge. The evidence lies not in fossils but in statistical anomalies, regions of the genome with unexpected variation that cluster together and are shared across thousands of individuals in Papua New Guinea and surrounding islands. These patterns suggest an ancient interbreeding event, Homo sapiens mating with another hominin group whose DNA had already diverged from our own long before modern humans emerged. The Denisovans, discovered only through a few teeth and bone fragments in Siberia, are one known contributor to this genetic legacy. But the data reveals more segments of DNA that don't match Denisovan sequences precisely, yet appear only in Melanesians, suggesting another unknown hominin group contributed as well. This inference rests on computational models of population genetics, the kind used to reconstruct migration patterns and estimate divergence times. These models are powerful but not infallible. They depend on assumptions about mutation rates and historical demography. Still, the consistency across multiple independent studies strengthens confidence. The fact that this ancestry is almost entirely absent in mainland Asian populations, yet widespread among Melanesians, suggests a distinct geographic origin, likely within island Southeast Asia or New Guinea itself. The most compelling proof lies not in one site, but in convergence from different samples across different labs. The same anomalies surface. While no fossil has been found that matches this lineage directly, the genetic signal is too strong and too widespread to dismiss as noise. It's a ghost line, not seen, but felt. In the high valleys of Papua New Guinea, where mist clings to the ridgelines like old cloth, life moves with quiet rhythm beneath a sky that never feels distant. Early light spills over stone-walled homes built not from timber but from the very rock they sit upon, walls shaped by hands that have passed down techniques older than memory. The women rise before dawn, their feet bare on cool earth as they gather tubers and sweet potatoes from terraced slopes carved into the mountainside. These are not just crops, they are stories told in root and leaf. Plants whose cultivation has been refined over generations, passed through fingers that know when to press earth with a palm and when to let it breathe. Men walk long trails along ridges where roots twist beneath their feet, paths worn by ancestors who walked the same way, perhaps even before the first houses were sketched into stone. They carry tools of bone and sharpened flint, fashioned in ways no one today can fully explain, but everyone knows how to use. There is a stillness in this place, not silence, but a listening quiet, as if the land itself holds its breath. At dusk, smoke curls from hearths where families gather around firelight that flickers not just on faces, but across generations. Children learn by watching, the way hands shape clay into bowls, how to weave bark into baskets strong enough to carry water from mountain streams. There is no written word here to teach them. The knowledge lives in muscle memory and shared breath. They do not speak of ancient bloodlines as a mystery. They know only that they are different, stronger where others tire, more attuned to the land's rhythm. The fear isn't of monsters or war, but of forgetting. How to name the mountain that once spoke when clouds gathered on its peak. How to find water in dry seasons, how to read signs in leaves and bird calls. This is not a myth. It is their daily life woven into them as deeply as the roots beneath their feet. The true mystery isn't just that Denisovans existed, though their existence was confirmed through a single finger bone in Siberia, but that their genetic shadow stretches across thousands of miles, not toward Europe or Asia's heartlands, but into the highlands and coastal islands of Melanesia. In people living today on New Guinea, Bougainville, and parts of the Solomon Islands, traces of Denisovan DNA persist at levels unmatched anywhere else, up to 5% in some individuals. But it is not just Denisovans that linger in their genes. Beneath this known layer lies a deeper signal, genetic sequences so divergent from any known hominin lineage that they cannot be explained by Denisovans alone. These are the ghost lineages, ancestors whose bones, if they ever existed, have vanished without trace. The central dynamic is not simply coexistence, but deep interbreeding between multiple human forms in a region long assumed to be biologically peripheral to the story of human evolution. Melanesia was never on the edge. It appears instead to have been an evolutionary crossroads, where different hominin branches converged, merged, and disappeared, leaving only whispers in modern genomes. The genes that survive are not neutral markers, but functionally significant. Some influence immune response. Others aid adaptation to high-altitude environments or tropical pathogens. This suggests these archaic lineages were not merely passively inherited. They contributed traits so vital that natural selection actively preserved them. Yet the fossil record offers no clear candidates for this ghost lineage. No skulls, no tools, no bones matching their genetic signature. Their existence is inferred only from anomalies in DNA sequences, stretches of genomic material unlike anything found in Neanderthals, Denisovans, or modern humans. The implication is staggering. A human family tree far more complex and tangled than we once believed, where deep branches, species long thought extinct, still whisper through the bloodlines of living people. It forces us to reconsider not just who our ancestors were, but how deeply they shaped who we are today. The first stirrings came not from bones, but from blood. Specifically, the threads of DNA stitched through the bodies of people living in remote highlands and coastal villages across Melanesia. When early genetic sequencing revealed patterns that did not match Homo sapiens or even Neanderthal lineages, scientists hesitated. The anomalies weren't random, they clustered with unsettling consistency among populations from New Guinea and nearby islands. It was as if a silent ancestor had passed through generations undetected, its presence known only in the subtle syntax of genetic code. The initial skepticism began to fray under repeated confirmation. Multiple independent studies across different laboratories found the same divergence, the same ghostly signature embedded deep within Melanesian genomes. Yet no fossil matched it. No jaw fragment, no skull vault bore its shape. This lineage, tentatively named for the cave in Tibet where similar DNA was first recognized, the Denisovans, was only partially known through fragments from a single site. But here, across thousands of miles and centuries, something deeper had survived. As researchers traced these genetic signatures into the genomes of living people, a quiet revolution began. It wasn't just that Denisovan DNA existed in Melanesians, it was that it was more abundant than Neanderthal DNA among them, suggesting not just contact but integration, reproduction, lasting generations. The idea that modern humans had interbred with multiple archaic lineages became less speculative and more routine. But the story didn't end there. In regions where Denisovan ancestry was highest, a new pattern emerged. Certain immune-related genes appeared to have been selected for, as if natural selection favored those inherited traits, possibly resistance to local pathogens or adaptations to high-altitude environments. The implications were profound. This was not just survival of the fittest, but adaptation shaped by ancient genetic inheritance. The ghost lineage wasn't merely a memory, it had left its mark in living biology. And then came the uncertainty, the silence where fossils should be. If these people were real ancestors, why no bones? Why did they vanish from the fossil record while their DNA remained so vividly present? The answer may lie not in absence but in geography. Highland forests and tropical soils that preserve little, or perhaps in culture nomadic groups whose burials left no trace. Or it may be simpler still, we have not yet looked where they might rest. For now, the ghost remains a presence only in our blood, and in the quiet hum of DNA that refuses to stay silent. The full story remains incomplete, and many interpretations are still contested. While genetic analysis has revealed traces of a deeply divergent lineage in Melanesian populations, distinct from both Denisovans and modern humans, the precise identity of this ancestral branch remains elusive. Some researchers refer to it as a ghost population, but that label is more metaphor than definition. We do not know its name, its full morphology, or even the exact timing of its divergence. The evidence comes solely through subtle patterns in DNA, specifically segments of ancient hominin sequence that consistently appear in Melanesian genomes but are absent elsewhere. These sequences suggest interbreeding occurred long after Denisovans themselves had begun to fade, yet no fossil has been found that clearly links to this genetic signature. A common oversimplification is the idea that Melanesians possess a third human ancestor akin to Neanderthals and modern humans, implying a clean tripartite split. But the reality is far more complex. The genetics point not to one lineage, but possibly multiple lineages of archaic hominins that may have interbred with incoming populations in Southeast Asia or the Pacific Islands. These were not just isolated encounters, they appear to be part of a deeper web of interactions across Pleistocene Eurasia and Oceania. Moreover, the absence of fossils matching this genetic signal raises questions about preservation bias. Was it climate? Geology? Human mobility that prevented fossil capture while allowing DNA to endure in living people. And though some media portray this as an unknown species, we must be cautious. We are not uncovering a new species per se, but rather reconstructing its existence through molecular whispers across millennia. The true depth of human diversity during the late Pleistocene may never be fully visible, not because it didn't happen, but because our tools remain incomplete and fragmented. What endures is not a fossil, nor a single name etched in stone, but something far more subtle, fragments of breath caught in bloodline after bloodline, passed down through generations who never knew they carried the echo of another species. These traces are not relics in bone or tool, but sequences written across DNA like whispered secrets handed from mother to child across centuries. In Melanesian communities, this ancestry isn't a curiosity, it's part of how people understand themselves. It is woven into their lives, in stories that speak of ancient beings who once walked the land, in names for mountains and rivers said to be born of ancestral breath, in ceremonies where ancestors are invoked not just through lineage, but through something deeper, a belonging to an older world. This inheritance persists because it was useful, perhaps. Not in the way fire or stone tools were useful, but in the quiet way biology shaped survival. Immune responses shaped by ancient exposure, metabolic adaptations tuned over millennia. It is not a memory of conquests, but of endurance, the ability to thrive where others could not. The lineage didn't vanish because it was weak. It faded quietly into the living flesh of people whose lives unfolded on islands far from mainland migrations. And so we carry what cannot be seen, ancestors who never left behind bones in our museums, who existed beyond fossil records yet still speak through us. This is not just about the past, it's about how change happens beneath the surface of time. How evolution isn't a straight line but a branching river, and some streams converge long after they've parted ways. To know this ancestry is to understand that we are not alone in our history, not even as individuals, but part of a deeper network shaped by invisible threads linking us across time, space, and species. It matters because it reminds us the human story is never complete until we listen to what lies beneath silence, until we see the living trace where others saw only absence.